Buddhism, like the cultures associated with it, takes many forms and reaches many people. More than just a religion, for its followers, Buddhism is a way of life. In the year 563 BC, a prince was born in a town near the Himalayas in northern India. That town, Lumbini, is now in the country of Nepal. According to legend, the birth of this prince, known as Siddhartha Gautama, was accompanied by miracles. A seer predicted that a parting of the ways lay ahead. Siddhartha would either become a world ruler, or if he ever saw, together or separately, a decrepit old person, a diseased person, a corpse, and a monk, he would become a homeless seeker of the truth and a Buddha, an enlightened one. His father, the Raja, did not want his son to become a religious leader, so the prince was brought up in palatial luxury and protected from knowledge of the outside world. He married young and had a child. Finally, however, he went out into the streets among the people and for the first time looked upon old age, illness, and death. He sought out the nature of old age, of sickness. Siddhartha then came upon a Hindu holy man and was deeply impressed by the sadhu's calm and peaceful nature. As a result of this encounter, at the age of 29, Siddhartha left his home, his wife and child, and the promise of earthly power and glory. He took to the roads of India in search of the truth about human existence. The prevailing religion in India at that time was Hinduism, a religion that worshipped many deities and believed that living a life of extreme hardship was the way to gain spiritual merit. As he wandered, dressed in rags and penniless, Siddhartha encountered more Hindu holy men, or sadhus, who deeply impressed him with their simple lives of prayer and meditation. They lived as ascetics, having devoted their lives totally to God. He spent 5 years practicing extreme austerities, sometimes eating only a single grain of rice in a day, and living without shelter. At the end of this time, he realized that he was no nearer to his goal of attaining knowledge and wisdom. He abandoned the austere path of the ascetic and sat down in the shade of a bo tree to meditate. He said, "Let my skin wither, my hands grow numb, my bones dissolve. Until I have attained understanding, I will not rise from here." It was his 35th birthday, and for 7 weeks he sat in meditation, until at last his plea was answered. This is the story that is told of the beginnings of one person's spiritual journey, a journey that gave rise to the religion of Buddhism, the middle way, a path rejecting self-denial on the one hand and self-indulgence on the other. While meditating, Siddhartha had a vision. He saw beings passing away and being reborn, some into happy and others into miserable circumstances. According to the universal law of karma, by which it is believed every act of good or evil will be rewarded or punished in this life or in some other reincarnation.
Karma is energy, the law of conservation of energy, which means no energy will be lost. So no karma will be erased, no karma will be disappeared. So what I say now is eternally recorded. What I think now will be eternally recorded. What I do now will be eternally recorded. This determines our tomorrow as well as next year as well as next life.
Because he grew up as a Hindu, Siddhartha accepted the doctrine of reincarnation. He saw this cycle of rebirth as a source of human suffering. He saw that all is suffering. Birth is suffering. Death is suffering. Life itself is suffering. The end of this suffering then was nirvana, that is, escape from rebirth. To be sure, nirvana could not be achieved in this world. But by attaining a state of bliss, the contentment of no longer worrying about oneself, a person could escape the pain of life. As the Buddha, the Enlightened One, Siddhartha Gautama began his teaching. In his first sermon, here in the Deer Park, near Banaras, India, he taught that what he had discovered was the noble truth of the way that leads to the cessation of pain, the Noble Eightfold Way, namely, right views, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. For the rest of his life, the Buddha traveled from village to village, teaching his Eightfold Way. The Buddha died at the age of 80 in the home of a friend who had unknowingly served him a meal prepared with poisonous mushrooms. At the end, he uttered these comforting words. In all of his lifetime, 2 meals stood out as supreme. One was the meal he ate before he sat beneath the bo tree, after which he received enlightenment. The other was the one he consumed at the home of his dear friend, after which he would receive nirvana. Long after the Buddha's death, his teachings were assembled by his followers into a collection called the Tripitaka, or 3 baskets, for the writings were made on palm leaves, like those used in basket making. Following the Buddha's death, his disciples continued his work, and this widespread religious fervor resulted in a creative outpouring of great works of art. Today, Thangka painting is a beautiful form of Buddhist art. These paintings depict events in the life of the Buddha and are used as objects of meditation. Some Thangka paintings are so detailed that they are painted with a brush of only a single hair. Thangka artists in Nepal begin painting at a very early age with simpler designs. Metal statues of the Buddha are also a popular form of art. These are cast from brass or bronze and then carefully finished by hand. Animals figure prominently in the Buddhist faith, reflecting the belief that all life is sacred. They are the subject of sculpture and are found at temples where they are fed and well cared for. Sacred mounds or stupas, such as this one at Kathmandu, Nepal, were built to contain Buddhist relics and remains. Many of these stupas were built as Buddhist missionaries spread the faith to other lands. These missionaries carried Buddha's story and his teachings throughout the world. Today, more than 250 million people follow his path to enlightenment, the middle way. Buddhists in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Burma, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam follow what is called Theravada Buddhism, the way of the elders. This is an orthodox form of Buddhism, claiming to preserve the original interpretation of the Buddhist teachings, as taught by the senior monks of the Sangha, the monastic order founded by the Buddha. Theravadists believe that the Buddha was a great teacher rather than a god, and that they can bring about their own salvation by following the Buddha's example. Within Buddhist temples and monasteries throughout Thailand and Burma, nearly all young men spend a few months of their lives in intense training as monks.